Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Radhe Radhe Govinda. Hare Krishna from Sridham Mayapur. Good morning. This is my name is Madhavananda Das, and today we have a very, very special discussion. Today is the most blessed appearance day of the beloved daughter of Maharaj Vrishabhanu, Srimati Radharani. It's Radhastami, and in this session we're going to go on a journey to Vrindavan, and we want to hear a special pastime of how Radharani once came to Krishna dressed as a demigod and began speaking ill about herself, Radharani, trying to convince Krishna to give up Radha and marry her sister. So the Padma Purana in the fourth canto, chapter 1, describes what is a Vaishnava. And it's just, the text 31 to 32 says, Veda Shastranurakta Ye Tulsivana Palaka Radhastami Brata Rata Vigyayas Te Cha Vaishnavaha Shri Krishna Purato Ye Cha Deepam Yachanti Shradaya Param Nindam Nakurvanti Vigyayas Te Cha Vaishnava. So this is a definition given in Padma Purana of who is a Vaishnava. A Vaishnava is someone who's Veda, Shastra, and Urakta, who's very attached to studying Shastra, who's Tulsi Vana Palaka, who protects the gardens of Tulsi, Radhastami Brata Rata, who very joyfully observes the vow of Radhastami, Shri Krishna Purato Yecha, Deepam Yachanti Shradhaya, someone who with faith offers a lamp to Krishna, and Param Nindam Nakurvanti, who doesn't criticize other persons. Vigyayaste cha Vaishnavaha. That person is a Vaishnava. So for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, even more important perhaps than the appearance day of Krishna is the appearance day of Srimati Radharani. I remember last time we were in Vrindavan for Radhastami and Janmashtami. For Janmashtami, it was a big, oh my God, the roads were completely packed. And everybody seemed like the whole city of Delhi came to Vrindavan that day. And it was crazy. But then for Radhastami, it was so peaceful and hardly anybody was there. Because Radharani's not so well known as Krishna. Radharani's not so well known as Krishna in Delhi, because there's so many people come from Delhi. Although now when you go through Delhi, you see a lot of stickers on the windows that say Radhe, Radhe, and there's some people preaching like that. So we want to offer a few prayers. We'd like to offer this talk this morning to the Lotus feet of our revered spiritual master, Sri Srimad Gaur Govinda Maharaj, who spoke such a wonderful kathas about Srimati Radharani and inspired us greatly, and also to our Param Gurudev, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shiva Prabhupada, who brought Srimati Radharani and brought Krishna to the West, and without his mercy, without his coming, we wouldn't know anything about her. Gora Graganya Gana Gocha Goloruhadam Goranga Gura Tamagopya Kopa Briksham Gopalagada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshi Kavaram Satatam Namam Vanchakopavirubhishcham Kripasindhu Vyevacham Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Govinda Nandiri Radha Govinda Mohini Govinda Sarvasvasara Kanta Shiromani. Srimati Radharani is Govinda Nandini, who gives pleasure to Govinda. She's Govinda Mohini. She's the one who enchants and bewilders Krishna. Govinda. Govinda Sarvasva. She's everything, the be-all and end-all of Govinda. Sarva Kanta Shiromani. She's the crest jewel of all his concerts. Devi Krishna Moyi Prokta Radhika Pada Devata Sarva Lakshmi Mahi Sarva Kanti Samohini Para. The transcendental goddess, Srimati Radharani, is a direct counterpart of Lord Sri Krishna. She is a central figure for all the goddesses of fortune. She possesses all the attractiveness to attract the all-attractive personality of Krishna. She is a primeval internal potency of the Lord. Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Harinam Chintamani describes Radharani, Mahabhava Swarupini Brishabhanu Sutta Tanya Anugata Bhakti Sada Prema Yuta. That Srimati Radharani is Mahabhava Swarupini. She embodies the greatest ecstasy of love, known as Mahabhava. She's the daughter of Maharaj Vrishabhanu, Vrishabhanu Sutta. Tanya Anugata. That bhakti, Tanya Anugata Bhakti, Sada Prema Yuta. The bhakti that follows Srimati Radharani is always full of loving ecstasy of Krishna prema. Pasanjahamaho nityam paraparada dharma kakshamashramam hare radha dehi me sadhu dharma kam. Pasanjaham, I am a pashandi. What is a pashandi? A pashandi has several meanings. One meaning is an atheist. Another meaning is someone who's a heretic who criticizes religion. Someone who's a hypocrite is another meaning. Someone who's an imposter, an offender, that's a pashandi. How often am I a pashandi? Aho nityam. I'm always a pashandi. Paraparada dharmaka. And to offend other people, that's my internal nature. That's my dharma. And therefore we pray, Shama Shamam Hare Radha. Oh Srimati Radharani, you're so very, very kind. Please forgive me. Dehime sadhu dharmakam. Please change my nature and make me into a saintly devotee. Bhajami Radham Madhavinda Netram Smarami Radham Madhura Smitasyam Vadami Radham Karuna Bharadram Tupo Toto Mananyasti Gatir Nakapi. This is a verse by Srila Raghunath Das Goswami from his Vishakanandara Stotra, text 131. This is some prayers that he wrote for the pleasure of Vishaka. Bhajami Radham Madhavinda Netram. I worship that lotus-eyed Radha. Smarami Radham Madhura Smitasyam. I always smarami Radha, remember Radha as Madhura Smitasya, who is always very sweetly smiling. She has a very gentle smile. Vadami Radham Karuna Bharadram. I want to glorify Vadami, that supremely merciful Radha. Tato mamanyasti gatir nakapi. Srimati Radharani is the only goal of my life. I have no other goal. So today, on this most auspicious day, we would like to read a little something from some lectures that Srila Prabhupada gave about Srimati Radharani on the day of Radhastami. The first is from a lecture he gave in Ahmedabad on the 13th of December, 1970. We'd also like to speak a little something about the mood of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur toward Radhastami. And then we'd like to go to some pastime, some stories of Srimati Radharani, which I'll be very, very surprised if anybody listening has heard before, because unless you're a Bengali reader, this story has not been translated before. Srila Prabhupada describes, when one becomes an Uttama Adhikari Mahabhagavat, he does not see anyone as a demon. He sees everyone is worshiping Krishna, only I'm not worshiping. This is Mahabhagavat. Just like Radharani, she always feels that I do not know how to love Krishna. And then Srimati Radharani thinks, oh, here's a gopi. She has so much love for Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada says, that is called Mahabhav. So we should not imitate Radharani. Just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's a symbol of Radharani's Mahabhav, but he says, I don't love Krishna. I don't know how to love Krishna. If you cry and somebody asks, why are you crying? Well, it's a show, Prabhupada says. I'm making a show of crying. Prabhupada says, a truly qualified devotee will instead answer, if I would have loved Krishna, then being without him, I would have died long, long ago. The fact that I'm living still without Krishna means I do not love Krishna. This is Mahabhagavat Bhav, separation. Asli Shava Padavatam Panastumam Adarshana Mamahatam Kurotu Va Yata Tata Va Vidadatu Lampato Mat Prananatastu Saeva Napraha. And Prabhupada translates it. Lord Krishna, who is a lover of many devotees, may embrace this fully surrendered maidservant, or may trample me with his feet, or he may render me broken-hearted by not being present before me for a long duration of time, but still he's nothing less than the absolute Lord of my heart. Prabhupada said, this is Mahabhagavat. We should not imitate such a person, but also we should not remain a Kanishta Adhikari. We must come to the Madhyam Adhikari, middle stage. These stages will gradually manifest if we simply try to develop our attachment for Krishna. On one occasion, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was approached by one of his sannyasi disciples, whose name was Parvat Maharaj. And he had a question. He said, Guru Maharaj, why did Krishna disappear from the Ras Leela in the presence of Radharani? That was his question. When Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, we printed this in our recent issue of Bindu magazine, by the way. When Srila Bhaktisiddhanta heard this, he became very disturbed. Because in that pastime, it appears that Srimati Radharani is slighting Radharani. Krishna, slighting Radharani. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he describes in one place that the reason why Krishna disappeared was to witness the depth of separation that Radharani felt for him. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments, he says that just as a goldsmith, to prove the value of gold, applies heat to the gold and thereby melts it, so Krishna sometimes applies Vipalamba Agni, or the fire of separation, to glorify Srimati Radharani and the gopis. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, when he heard this question from his Parvat Maharaj, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was so attached to Srimati Radharani, he couldn't hear anything apparently critical or demeaning of Radharani. And he became agitated, and he said, what bhakti do you find that makes you want to ask such a question? He wouldn't even answer his question. And it's described that sometimes just upon hearing or speaking the name of Radha, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati would manifest different symptoms of asasatvikara vikara, or ecstatic symptoms of being stunned and trembling and crying and like that. And although he would try to maintain his gravity, his whole body would become stiff and his words would become choked. Sometimes his disciples would come in his room and they would find him sitting there alone, just crying and crying in ecstasy. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was so very attached to Srimati Radharani. But as Srila Prabhupada says in this lecture, we don't imitate such a person. But he says at the same time, we should not remain a Kanishta Adhikari. We must come to the Madhyam Adhikari stage. And so we should hear something about Srimati Radharani. But we should do it in a proper way. Once there was one public meeting, and the Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was giving a lecture to South India, and there was some person there who challenged him. And he's from South India. In South India, they have attachment for Lakshmi Devi. And he said, why do you go to your Vaishnavas, put so much stress on Radha? Why do you neglect Lakshmi Devi? And then he started quoting some different verses glorifying Lakshmi Devi. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta became transcendently confused because he didn't speak openly in public about the glorification of Srimati Radharani. But at the same time, in this situation, he's obliged to uphold her dignity and say something. And because of the previous acharyas, but he didn't know what to do. And so after a moment, he just fainted. That was his reply. He couldn't say anything. On another lecture Srila Prabhupada gave in 1973 in London on Radhastami Day, I'll read you a few things Prabhupada says there. He says, the aim of life is to satisfy Lord Vishnu. Krishna is the origin of Vishnu-tattva, and he's pleased through Radharani. Therefore, we don't keep Krishna alone. No, we keep Radha Krishna. First, you have to worship Radharani. So her appearance day, Radhastami, is today. This is an important principle which is described in many different literatures. Srila Gopal Guru Goswami in his Gauragovinda Smarnarchana Padidi describes Dina Radha Prasadena Krishna Praptina Jayate Tata Shri Radhika Krishna Smaraniyo Susamyuto. Without the mercy of Radha, we can never get Krishna. Krishna Praptina Jayate. Therefore, Tata Shri Radhika Krishna Smaraniyo Susamyuto. We should always chant their names together. We should always remember them together. In the Narada Purana, there's an interesting question raised. It said that why do we say Radha Madhav? Why do we say Radha Krishna? Why don't we put Krishna's name first? And the answer there is given because Srimati Radharani is the mother of the universe, and Krishna's the father. And the mother is 100 times more worshipable and due of respect than the father. So worshipping Srimati Radharani is even more important to us than worshiping Krishna. And when we worship Radharani, the Gaudiya Vaishnavas generally, they chant the names of Radha Krishna because that gives pleasure to Srimati Radharani. Some persons, they only chant Radharani's name, or they only worship Radharani on this day, but that doesn't give pleasure to Radha. And our business is to make pleasure, to give pleasure to Radha. Our business is to always keep Radha and Krishna together. Srila Prabhupada went on in his lecture, he said, I may not be a devotee, I may be a most fallen rascal, but if I try to reach Krishna through Radharani, then my business is successful. I may be a big rascal, I may be a devotee, but if I try to approach Krishna through Radharani, therefore we should worship Radharani first. That is our business. Instead of directly offering a flower to Krishna, put it in the hands of Radharani and say, my dear mother Radharani, Jagannatha, please kindly take this flower and offer it to Krishna. Radharani says, oh, you've brought a flower? Krishna said, Patam pusham phalam toyam yami bhakta prayachati. If one offers me with devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, I'll accept it. But don't try to offer it to Krishna directly. Offer through Radharani. It will be very much appreciated by her. This is our philosophy, to please Krishna through Radharani. And conversely, Prabhupada doesn't mention here, but our acharyas describe, we please Radharani through Krishna. We chant Krishna's names and it brings pleasure to Radharani. Today is the auspicious day, Prabhupada said, of Radharani's appearance. We should offer Pushpanjali and pray, O Radharani, kindly be merciful and tell about me to your Krishna. Krishna is yours. Krishna is not independent. Krishna is Radharani's property. So you have to approach Krishna through Radharani. Today is an auspicious day. Worship Radharani very nicely and be happy. On one lecture in Radhastami in 1931, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he described, let that personification of supreme magnanimity, Srimati Radharani, who is always eager to collect the mercy of the Supreme Lord on behalf of all living entities, may she appear in our hearts and make her presence known. Let her appearance be our object of worship. This is the purpose of our worship. This is the purpose of this Radhastami day today. We want Srimati Radharani to appear in our heart. If we worship the one who is Govinda's own wealth, the one who makes him wealthy, the one who is everything to Govinda, then we will understand what worship is. If after reading the 18,000 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, we do not come to know about her, then our reading was useless. If by some unknown sukriti we get the association of those who are close to Radharani, if we're fortunate enough to hear about her, then we can get the inspiration to proceed towards our supremely beneficial goal. She's everything to the son of Nanda, who is a reservoir of all ecstasy. And we will never attain devotional service to Govinda without serving her and her servitors. So on this day, I want to tell a story which we might not normally tell, a little known story, from a book called Vidyadhara Vilas by a Vaishnava in the line of Advaitacharya, whose name was Manohar Das. He was born in the district of Nadia in 1847, and he has some connection also with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. It's a long story, I'm not go there now. But later in his life, he settled in Govinda Kund, and he would do madhukari and just bag a little wheat flour. If you're facing Govinda Kund, it's right in front of you, and Govardhan Hill is there on the other side of it. Govardhan Hill is in front of you. On your left, there's a temple of, I think it's a Radha Gopinath Mandir. And in the corner of that compound, there's a very nice Baba who stays there, there's a huge banyan tree. And that banyan tree was a bhajan stali of Manohar Das. And he would stay there. He was chanting 3 lakhs of the Hare Krishna mantra every day, and was very, very simple. He spoke very little. He slept very little. He would just stay under that shadow of that tree and do his bhajan. And there he wrote these 2 books, Vaidagya Vilas and another book called Nam Ratna Mala. He wouldn't ever allow anyone to touch his feet or do pranam to him. And if he would wash his feet, he would make sure that the water that came from his feet was mixed with dust, so nobody could take his Charanamrita. On one occasion, a Vaishnava asked him, how is it possible to conquer the obstacles in performing bhajan? And his reply was, if someone tries to do bhajan with all his heart and strength, the Supreme Lord, being pleased with his honest endeavor, will open the gate to bhajan. Obstacles in the path of bhajan gradually diminish in the course of performing bhajan, but it doesn't happen in one day. One must practice bhajan with eagerness and intensity, as well as patience and endurance. To keep one's mind fixed is the most difficult task. The mind is not purified unless and until it leaves all attachments to the material world behind. If the mind is not purified, he said, bhakti cannot be attained, and without bhakti one cannot realize the Supreme Lord. By the strength of one's bhajan, material tendencies will gradually be wiped out, and as one's mind becomes cleaner and cleaner, all hindrances will gradually vanish. There's a story that we've heard there about Manohar Das, that there was one wealthy Delhi wala, one person from Delhi once came and he wanted to offer some service to the sadhus. And so it was a very cold winter in Vrindavan. It gets so cold. And so he came and offered a kumbal, a blanket, to Manohar Das. And Manohar Das said, what do you think? I'm some kind of Dari sannyasi, some kind of sense enjoyer or something. I'm not going to accept that. Go away. Leave me alone. Let me do my bhajan. And so the man went away. And then after some time, while he was chanting during his bhajan, Manohar Das fell into trance and was completely oblivious to everything external. At that time, that person from Delhi came and wrapped the blanket around him and then left. And an hour or 2 later, Manohar Das came out of his trance and was wondering, why do I feel so hot? What's going on? And he looked down and saw this blanket around him. He immediately threw the blanket off and he began cursing his body. My body, you're always trying to enjoy sense gratification. You're a nonsense. You deserve to be chastised. It was maybe 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, and he jumped into Govinda Kund in the middle of the winter, extremely cold, to punish his body. So Manohar Das has said that he was a very learned person. Many devotees were studying Srimad Bhagavatam under his guidance. But it's said that by doing his Nam Bhajan, he started developing Leela Sprutis, and he was actually seeing the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. So we'd like to say something about his from his book by Dr. Vilas today. In the spirit of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta speaking about how important it is that we should hear about Srimati Radharani, especially on this day, and pray that she may appear in our heart. And in the spirit of Srila Prabhupada, where he was saying in Radhastami that we should not remain Kanishta Adhikaris, but we should come to the Madhyam platform. So I want to speak this story, and some people, you may chastise me because you'll see that Madhavananda has no qualification for this. Actually, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he forbade the devotees from speaking in public about Srimati Radharani, although sometimes he would, in private, speak about her. At the same time, at Radha Kund once, he said that our goal is not anartha nivritti, our goal is artha pravriti. It's not just to become free from material desires, but we must hear about the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. He said if we don't hear about these pastimes, then we may become impersonalists. If all we do is strive to become free, purify our hearts, we may become impersonalists. So, as a service to my revered spiritual master, who sometimes told us that we should work to help uphold the prestige of Srila Prabhupada's society, and who wanted to have these topics within ISKCON, and who told us that, told me personally, that we should show that we have everything within ISKCON. So on this special day, this appearance day of Srimati Radharani, we'd like to say some pastimes about her. First of all, Srimati Radharani did not appear in Barsana, contrary to what many persons think. She appeared in the village known as Rabba. And there's an interesting description by Manohar Das why that village is known as Rabba. I'm not going to speak exactly the story about her appearance, because we'll be hearing that many times. And there's several different descriptions. One description is in Brahma Bhavarta Purana, there's another description in Brahma Purana. Garga Samhita has a little different description. Padma Purana has another wonderful description. Our Guru Maharaj Gentleman spoke. I'm not going to go there today for this. We're just going to say a little something. Shri Radha Janame Sabha Anande Barila Radha Bolo Balite Nare Premita Matila. When Srimati Radharani was born, Sabha Anande Bharila, everyone became extremely ecstatic. And they all, when they heard the name, when Vrishabhanu Maharaj came out and said, so we have a daughter. They said, what's her name? What's her name? And Vrishabhanu Maharaj said her name is Radha. Everyone wanted to chant the name of Radha. They all became completely ecstatic. But Radha Baliti Nari Premiti Matila. Out of ecstasy, they became so ecstatic just hearing the name of Radha, they couldn't speak her name. They became choked up. Ra akshara bolite shabadavakya rodahoy. Rabala bolyagram namatati hoy. And because their voices became choked up, just they tried to say her name, and all they could get out was the first syllable, Ra akshara bolite. They said Ra, and they became completely ecstatic. They couldn't say anything else. So that village, where that's all they could say was Ra, it became known as Rabba. And this is the purport to the appearance place of Srimati Radharani. There is a wonderful pastime described by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in a book known as Prema Samput. And in this story, Krishna comes and he does this Prema Parikshit Leela. He comes to test the love of Srimati Radharani. And he dresses up like a demigoddess. And he comes before Srimati Radharani and he looks very depressed. Radharani, not recognizing that it's actually her Pranavallabha Krishna, says, oh, my dear lady, you're so beautiful, but you look very sad. What's wrong? And that demigoddess didn't want to say anything. Radharani asked, please tell me, who are you? Why are you so unhappy? What's wrong? And finally, that demigoddess, who's actually Krishna, dressed as a woman, spoke to Radha and said that I'm a demigoddess. I live in the heavenly planets. And what makes me unhappy is that everybody there makes fun of you. Although you're the greatest of chaste ladies, you're more beautiful than the most beautiful ladies in the whole universe. They make fun of you. Radharani said, why? Because you're following this debauchee Krishna. He's very bad. And then Krishna, dressed as this demigoddess, began speaking all bad things about himself, about Krishna, to Radharani, just to test Radharani's love. And Radharani said, no, 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 go away. You don't speak like this to me. He chastised him. So this is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's Prema Samputa in 1 or 2 sentences. It's a very wonderful book. We'd highly recommend. Very good day to read it. But we'd like to tell you another story about a day when Srimati Radharani tested Krishna's love. One day in Jagat, Srimati Radharani was sitting with some of her intimate companions, her pranasakis, and she told them that my Shama Sundar Krishna, he's the Pandit of all rasas. I have this desire to disguise myself and examine his love. And I'm going to do that to give him pleasure, so we can have a kind of special rasa. So then Lalita, who was there, she spoke up and said, you should become a Vidyadhara. Vidyadhara is one of the demigods in the heavenly planets. And by that you can judge the love of your beloved Krishna. And so Lalita took off Radharani's blouse and she put on a man's shirt on her, and took off all of her ornaments and put on a crown on her, and dressed Radharani like a demigod, like a man, a male demigod. And she put some garland around her neck and different ornaments, and now she looked like a devata. And all the bumblebees were following along Radharani because of the beautiful fragrance coming from her body. She was holding a golden cane in her hand. And then she went walking from Jagat to Nandagaon to see Krishna. On the way, everyone who saw her, all the children, all the aged persons, they became very charmed. Who was this? Is some beautiful demigod? And they all started following her. No one could recognize her. And finally, she reached Nanda Maharaj's village. It's your phone making some noise. Brigupati. Okay. When she reached the gate of Nanda Maharaj's home, the gatekeeper, the chokidar there, he asked her, who are you? Why are you coming here? And finished. And then that demigod said, I've come from the heavenly planets, and I've come here for the purpose of meeting with Krishna. You please go and inform him. And so the chokidar said, wow, that's pretty good. So he ran really quick to Krishna and said, there's some demigod here who wants to speak with you. And Krishna came out, and he saw that demigod, and he didn't recognize Radha, but Krishna thought, wow, this is the most beautiful demigod I've ever seen. Immediately Krishna was attracted to Srimati Radharani. And Krishna said, who are you? And Radha said, I am a demigod, a Vidyadhara. I have some very urgent, important business to speak with you about, but we have to discuss it in a secluded place, alone. She said, very good, but please come with me in the house. And so that David said, this is a very secret thing. No one should enter there. And Krishna said, don't worry, no one's going to come in. And so they both sat down, and Krishna offered that Vidyadhara a celestial seat. But the Deva, for some strange reason, didn't want to sit very close to Krishna. Krishna may smell the body of Radharani, or if she touches him, immediately he'll know who it is. The Deva said, you sit down here, I'll sit somewhere else. And Krishna's looking at her and said, you look so familiar. I think I've met you before, but I don't recollect. And then they got shot. Maybe, I don't know. Anyway, I came here for a very special purpose. And if you fulfill my request, then I'll be satisfied. Krishna said, you tell me if it's possible, I'll do whatever you like. And that Devata said, Krishna, your beauty is beyond compare. You're the only son of the king of Braj. Why haven't you gotten married yet? You're misusing your youth. You should get married and have a happy family life. This is Radharani speaking to Krishna. Radharani's dressed as a demigod. And this way, this life and your next life will be full of happiness. He said, I have a beautiful sister. Her name is Ananga Mohini. She's so beautiful. And if you marry her, I have so much money. I'll give you a big house, a lake, a forest around it. So I've come to make this match with you. And not only Ananga Mohini, but I also have hundreds of other daughters who are also very qualified and beautiful. And if you agree to marry Ananga Mohini, I'll give all those daughters to you. And you'll get so much money from this marriage. You'll be able to live very comfortably. Krishna, when he heard that, immediately he remembered Srimati Radharani. Krishna made a face. And he said, no. He said, marriage is just a kind of subtle death. And wealth, money, is just for Yamaraj, the god of death. Marriage is no solution. It's just like a blind person falling sometimes into a well. And Krishna told that demigod, Shastrika ashrama dharma pravitika hoya evivaha shukimora mananahi hoya. Krishna said, I have no attraction to doing this ashram dharma and being married and having happiness of living with a wife. The Vidyadhara, who is actually Radharani, told him, you seem like a very wise person, but I'm not satisfied with your philosophy. And Radharani, as a Vidyadhara, then told Krishna, Avyaya e upasabde adi arta hoya indriya samyamaje yama shabda koya indriya dhamana kori vartamana je upayama shabdera arta ami tarikai anyashame je indriya jaya nahi hoya grihashami anayase tari kori jaya. She says that yama means to control the senses. And the senses can only be subdued by upayama, or marriage. To conquer the senses is the meaning of the word upayama. And she said, Anyashame jay indriya jai nahi hoy. It's not possible to control the senses in any other ashram. Grihashami anayasi tari jai, kori jai. Only a grihasta can conquer over them. Just like someone takes shelter in a fort, can destroy his enemies. So in the same way, a grihasta can conquer over his senses. But it's not possible to conquer the senses. But if you have a wife, then you're able to observe all the proper behavior of dharma. And all the shastras, she says, shastra is samata, grihi dharma praptihana. All of them say that only in the dharma of a grihasta can someone get happiness and liberation. And then Radharani addresses that demigod, quoted Manu Samhita. Na griham grihamityaho grihini grihamuchyate taya hi sahita sarvan purushartan samasnute. Just having a house is not a house, but it's a wife. He said, na griham grihamityaho. Just a house, griha is not a house. But when there's a grihini, then grihamuchyate. When there's a wife, then it's a real home. Chayati sahita sarvam purishartan samasati. If you live with a wife, then you can pursue all the interests of human life. And that demigod Radharani told Krishna, this path gives all happiness, but you have no attraction for it. I can't understand. What are you thinking? And then Krishna looked a little shy and replied to that demigod, Krishna boli Vidyadhara apani pandita dharma shastra balamoksha shastra anasangata. He said, oh Vidyadhara, you're quoting shastra to me, you're a big pundit, I appreciate that. You should tell me about religious scripture, real dharma, not just this moksha or liberation. This moksha is not good. You consider mukti to be good. But you should consider carefully, what happiness does a family person get from liberation? And Krishna told that demigod, Ehi rupa jadarati rashe mana roya bala paramatma rase kirupete jaya. If someone, he said, tries to develop some rasa for jadarati, some attraction for the material relationships, dull material objects, then Balaparamatma rasa ki rupati jaya. You tell me, how can they develop any rasa for Paramatma ras or spiritual ras? Krishna is the supreme Paramatma is telling this to Radharani. And he began to preach to that demigod. Jadanu Shilane Jada Rati Kaye Taya Pararati Nishta Eka Matata Nahi Hoya. If someone's absorbed in this dull matter, then the mind becomes stuck in mundane love. And one can't be fixed and pointed in transcendental love. And then Krishna began to quote the Bhagavad Gita. Vishayavani vartante niraharasya dehina rasavarjan sopyasya param drisva nivartate. That someone, the embodied soul, the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, although the taste for sense objects remains, but ceasing such engagements, by experiencing a higher taste, he's fixed in consciousness. And then Krishna quoted again, 3rd chapter of Gita. Yasvapna ratir eva shat atma triptas chamanava atmanyeva chasantustas tasya karyam navidyate. For someone who takes pleasure in the self, his human life is one of self-realization, and who's satisfied in the self, for him there's no duty. And Krishna said, Ehena ashrama dharmi nahi prayojana. I don't need your ashram religion. Atma rati sukhe, I am happy in spiritual bliss. But that Vidyadhara, who's actually Radharani, shook his head, her head, wasn't impressed. He said, Vidyadhara boli tava vaksha hasyapai. Your words make me laugh. E shabavicha tumi paile kotai. Where'd you get all these ideas? Where'd you get these slokas? This is from Krishna's Bhagavad Gita. Radharani's chastising Krishna like that. And Radharani, dressed as his demigod, told Krishna, Pratamata garati ashrayata kori krami paramatma rati tare asidari dharma paradharma e paraparastiti tahate pararashe eka nishvastiti. First of all, you have some attraction to family life. But when you practice dharma in family life, then gradually you get some spiritual attraction. And then dharma and paradharma comes one by one. Why are you speaking all this philosophy that Vidyadhara told Krishna? This is making me laugh. Where did you get these crazy ideas from? You don't understand the value of grihastha life. First you should get married to my sister, and you take shelter of dharma, and then gradually your spiritual attraction will awaken. And then the Vidyadhara quoted Bhagavad Gita. Yoga yukto vishuddhatma vijitatma jitendriya sarva bhutatma bhutatma kurvanapi nalipyate. One who works in devotion, who's a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses, is dear to everyone, and everyone's dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled. When Krishna heard that, Vishmaya hoila shamna aisi uttara, he became stunned. Where did you hear that from? He couldn't say anything. And then the Vidyadhara said, okay, enough philosophy. Now it's time you should agree to get married. And Krishna said, Ami paramatma rasi basi, vivahari karya kichu nahi basi. I enjoy this spiritual rest. I don't want to get married. And Radharani, as a demigod, looked and gave a crooked glance at Krishna. And she told him, Roy Boli, Ami hoy Siddha Vidyadhara. I'm a Siddha Vidyadhara. I know everything. Bhutari Trikala, I know past, present, and future. Vedya Amaranta, I know your secret. Don't try to hide anything from me. Parastri Paile, Kena vivaha koriba, adharme majile dharme, kemoni aside. I know why you don't want to get married. If you already have someone else's wife, why should you want to get married? Adharmi Majila, you're doing some adharma because you're going with some other man's wife. Dharma came on, he asked you, why should you want to be religious? Krishna said, I beg your pardon. Even in my dreams, I don't think of other people's wives. Radharani looked at Krishna. This is demigod. Really? I've heard the name of some woman named Radha. Have you heard about her? Krishna became a little fidgeting. And that demigod said, you've fallen for her love, but her love is false. It's bogus. I've come here today to rescue you. And Krishna looked a little disturbed. And she said, listen, let me tell you about this girl, Radha. You're so much in love for her, but her love is false. It's bogus. Let me tell you. Once you were supposed to meet her at the Bakul Grove, but she didn't show up. And you decorated that grove all by yourself, but you received so many pains for nothing. And she didn't send anybody there. It's very, very bad. So this is another story which Manohar Das describes. On one occasion, Radharani and Krishna were supposed to meet. But just as Radharani was going out that evening to meet with Krishna, suddenly Abhimanyu came there with Govardhan. Govardhan is the so-called husband of Chandravali. And Abhimanyu is a so-called husband of Radharani. It's complicated. We'll discuss that later on. And when Jatila saw that they come, oh, Radharani, you have to cook something, your husband has come. But Radharani is supposed to go and meet Shamsundar, so she couldn't go. And she's cooking, and Jatila keeps saying, you should make another preparation also, my son, you take good care of him. And Radharani's feeling very disturbed. Meanwhile, Krishna arrived there. And he found no one was there. So he decided, Radharani always dresses the kunj. Today, I'm going to decorate the kunj. And so he began to make the most amazing decorations. He made a beautiful gate out of flowers. He made a cottage completely out of flowers. We had a flag and a flagpole out of flowers. And he made different pictures of the pastimes of Radha and Krishna inside that cottage, all out of flowers, and a bed of flowers, and so many wonderful decorations. He was feeling pretty good about himself, that he decorated in such a nice way. But meanwhile, Radharani's not coming and not coming. And Krishna's looking around, where's Radha, where's Radha? Sometimes the moonshine would come through, and he would see the golden color and think, oh, there's Radha. Or he would hear some sound in the forest and think, there's Radha. But she hasn't come. She hasn't come. And finally, Krishna, he thought to himself, Jare Samvilama Ami Dehamana Prana Jahare Jovanadiya Kori Gocharana. I've given everything to this Radharani. I have so much love for her. I've dedicated everything to her. He said, but what is the result of this love? Say piriti kala naga amare dansila bishechata pati prana nahi nikasila. He said, I've been bitten by the poisonous black snake of love. And although I'm dying from that poison, somehow I'm still living. Piriti murati shukra janiya dali la dukara murati hoy gariya bari. I thought that this love would bring me happiness, and so I pursued it, but all that it's given me is unhappiness. And Krishna decided, all women are Maya. And henceforth, I don't want anything to do with any women. I'm going to become a brahmachari. And so, it's a long story. Krishna went back to his home and took rest. And that morning when Mother Yashoda went to wake Krishna up, she went to open the window because Krishna always was so happy. He loved the golden rays of the sunshine because it would remind him of Radha. And so that morning when Mother Yashoda went to wake up Krishna and open up the window curtains, Krishna said, Mother, I'm not feeling well. I'm sick. And don't open the curtain today. Mother Yashoda said, no, you should get up, take your bath, and we'll make something nice for you to eat. Krishna said, no. He said, Mata, now I become a brahmachari. And I'm not going to accept any fancy food. And Mother Yashoda said, Krishna, anyway, get up. You have to milk the cows. Put on your nice golden colored dhoti, which Krishna likes very much. And Krishna told her, no, Mata, from now on, I'm not going to wear a gold dhoti. I'll wear Balaram's blue dhoti. But everything gold is very bad. And I won't wear any golden ornaments because golden colored people are very unreliable. Everything gold is bad, and especially golden people are very bad. So this is Krishna's man. Krishna now has become angry with Radharani. And as we were mentioning in the class 2 days ago, when there's some separation between Radha and Krishna, all the residents of Vrindavan, either anvya, vitarekya, vyams, directly or indirectly, they feel very unhappy. They're only happy when Radha and Krishna are united. And so everyone became very, very sad. And the gopis, they went to Radharani and they, what can we do? And finally one of the gopis said, I think there's only one thing you can do. You should dress yourself as a sannyasi. And so Radharani dressed herself as a sannyasi. She went to the house of Nanda Maharaj. She knocked on the door, and Mother Yashoda came, and she said, what a nice sannyasi. And she said, my dear sannyasi, what do you want? And the sannyasi said, I've come here to beg some alms. Please give me some charity. And Mother Yashoda said, yes, right away. And the sannyasi said, no, I'm a very strict sannyasi. I won't accept any charity from a woman. I only accept charity from brahmacharis. And Mother Yashoda said, really? Well, my Gopal, he's become a brahmachari. So Mother Yashoda went to Krishna. Krishna, some sannyasi is here, and he won't accept any alms except from a brahmachari. You have to go out there. And Krishna said, Mata, I don't feel good. I don't want to see him. No, you have to go. And so finally Krishna said, okay. And he went, and then he saw such a nice sannyasi. Whoa. So attractive. And Krishna said, my dear sannyasi, what do you want? And that sannyasi said, I want something, but first you have to promise me that you'll give me whatever I ask for. And Krishna said, I'll give you whatever you want. You tell me, what is it? And then Radharani, dressed like a sannyasi, told him, I want your man. I want your sulkiness, your sulky anger. I'm actually the daughter. Your sulky anger, your man, your anger toward me. I'm actually the daughter of Maharaj Vrishabhani, and I've committed a great offense. And then she started crying, and Krishna started crying. And then when they finally recovered themselves, Krishna, he called for Mother Yashoda. He said, Ma, it's getting late in the day, and the sannyasis are very renounced. Sannyasi has nowhere to go. I'm a brahmachari. The sannyasi said, stay with me in my room tonight. Mother Yashoda said, very good. So this pastime went on another occasion. And the Vidyadhara was speaking about this. Said, listen, you made so many, he was telling Krishna this, you made such a nice kunj for Radharani, and she didn't even show up. She didn't send anybody. It's nonsense. On another occasion, Radharani was sitting in a kunj making garlands with her sakhis, and you came with a very simple, humble request, asking her if she could just give 1 or 2 simple garlands to decorate your cows. Raghunath Das Goswami describes this pastime in Mukta Charit. And she wouldn't give it to you. So Radharani, dressed as a demigod, is telling Krishna all these things. On another time, don't you remember Krishna? She criticized you for killing a cow, but it wasn't actually a cow, it was a demon. And by killing that cow, you saved everyone's life. And then she wouldn't accept you back. And so then you became very humble. You said, please forgive me. And she said, the only way you can be forgiven is to take bath in all the holy places. You can't touch us. And so then you called for all the holy places. And that's the appearance of Shamakund. And then you took bath there, and you were purified without any question. But still, Srimati Radharani refused to take bath in your lake, and she made her own lake known as Radhakund. How can you say she loves you? Such women like this Radha, they're very selfish. They give sweet words to men, but they don't really take care of them. You've been impressed by her fake love. During the Ras Leela, you left the gopis and took her with you and tried to please her with flowers and fruits. But she told you, don't leave her because she had her own pleasure. The Bhagavatam, 30th chapter, the 10th canto describes, Tato gatva vano desham dripta keshava mabhavit napari ham chalitum noi mam yatate mana. As Radha and Krishna were going through the Vrindavan forest, the special gopi described here in this verse, this Radharani is not mentioned directly, tells she began to feel a little proud of herself. And she told Krishna, I can't walk any further. Please carry me wherever you want to go. And so this Vidyadhara, who's actually Radharani, is criticizing Radharani to Krishna. And Radharani tells Krishna, what kind of behavior is that? Put me on your shoulder, take me wherever you want to go. Is that real love? You're not listening to me, I can see that. That's because you have this misconception about Radharani's fake love, and that's why. Krishna was stunned to hear the words of this Vidyadhara demigod. And finally he said, my dear demigod, how is it possible? Your words are breaking my heart. No one in all the three worlds have ever spoken such a way that you're speaking to me. Where have you come from? In spite of all your unpleasant words, somehow I still feel attracted to you. And that Vidyadhara just smiled and said, you can't see who's your real well-wisher. And Krishna said, oh Vidyadhara, you be my well-wisher. You don't understand the love of Radha. And then Krishna quoted a verse from the book, Gopi Premamrite. Akaitava Sudha Satve Radha Premamritam Buddhim Sparshante Ye Tata Sudha Radha Marganugamina. The Srimati Radharani is the ocean of spotless love. And if someone can just get a touch of that ocean, then they become Anugamini. They become her followers of this Rag Marg, or the path of Raganuga. And so on this day, we worship Srimati Radharani. And we pray that Radharani may appear in our heart, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati is instructed. Because if Srimati Radharani appears in our heart, only if Srimati Radharani appears in our heart, can we actually please Krishna. So then Krishna began preaching back to that demigod. And he said, you don't know the glory of my Radha. On one occasion, when we were supposed to meet, I became angry because Radharani hadn't come, and I refused cooked food. I wouldn't eat anything cooked, and I became a brahmachari. Then Radharani, she became a sannyasini. She gave up everything for my happiness. Who is this? This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he once said that we don't speak about the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. We may speak about the pastimes of Bala Gopal Krishna with Mother Yashoda. We may speak about the pastimes of Sakya Ras, or sometimes of Vatsalya Ras, or sometimes in Sakya Ras. But we don't speak about this Madhurya Ras. And then he paused and said, sometimes we may speak about it when we speak about the mood of separation, which is what we're speaking about today. Because that mood of separation helps us to understand Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then Krishna quoted a verse which Rupa Goswami gives in Laghu Bhagavatamrita. Nijangam apiya yogopyo mameti samupasate tabya param name partha niguda prema bhajanam. Krishna told Arjuna, he says, it's a verse from the Adi Purana, and also appears in Rupa Goswami's Laghu Bhagavatamrita. The gopis worship my body, Arjuna. No one else worships me with such intimate love. So Krishna's telling us to that Vidyadhara. And he says, it's true that for killing the cow, Radharani chastised me. But then, she won my heart. I'm happy with whatever she does. Srimati Radharani, it's true, she asked me to ride on my shoulder. But by that, she showed that she's a Swadhina Bhatrika. She's the heroine who subdues her beloved, her lover. And so it's right, it's proper for her to ride on my shoulder and to subdue me. In one lecture Srila Prabhupada gave in Mumbai, in Bombay at that time, Prabhupada said that Krishna likes to be refused. When he goes to the Kunj and Radharani says, get out, don't come here, you can't come here. Then Krishna becomes pleased. He likes to be chastised. He likes to be forbidden entrance by Srimati Radharani. Then Krishna, speaking to this Vidyadhara, who's actually Radharani, he quoted another Kavyalankar Shastra, saying, you're criticizing Radharani for being contrary, but you don't understand. Swadina sanido kanta swadidesham vahan muda yasha samvartate sahi swadina bhatrika smita. He gives a definition of a swadini bhatrika, or a heroine who controls her lover. That she acts independently in the presence of her lover, and she makes him carry out her orders in a dominating kind of way. If those qualities are found in a woman, she's to be known as a swadina bhatrika. And Krishna says, this gives me so much pleasure. You don't criticize my Radha. Her love is supremely pure. Radharani, hearing Krishna's glorification of herself, she softly smiled and said, you're trying to cover up Radharani's faults. What can I say to this? Why don't you listen to my advice? Just at that time, two gopis came there, who were generally on the side of Krishna. This is Kundalata and Dhanishta. And they came there understanding who this Vidyadhara really was. That it's actually Srimati Radharani. And they were listening to the conversation. And very innocently they said, you know, if the Vidyadhara could bring his sister here, then the marriage of Krishna can take place. Why are you delaying? And if you can't bring, then, oh Vidyadhara, you should put a garland in Krishna's neck. And then give it to your sister, and it'll be a Gandharva kind of marriage. Now they're saying this. Why are they saying like this? Because they know that as soon as Radharani puts a garland on Krishna, then immediately her disguise is going to be exposed. And Krishna is going to understand who it is. When Krishna heard the words of Kundalata and Dhanishta, he told them, what are you talking about? You're insulting a very wise person. And then Kundalata said, look, this demigod seems to be sweating. You should loosen his clothes and fan him. And so then Radharani looked very angry and started casting some angry looks at those gopis. And when Krishna saw her angry look at that demigod, he became astonished. And then Kundalata began to fan that demigod. And then suddenly Dhanishta grabbed that demigod and started opening up his shirt. And although Radharani strongly tried to oppose that, suddenly the shirt was torn open and some cloth came down, and anyway, everything came out. Hare Krishna. And when Krishna saw that, he was very, very astonished. And he recognized Radharani. And Krishna said, and became very happy, he said, you should fan her, but let her keep her clothes. This is not proper. And then Radha and Krishna sat down on their throne, and later they returned to their own places. So we hear these pastimes on this day of Radhastami, this wonderful pastime of this Prema Parikshit Leela, or the testing of Krishna's love. And this pastime indirectly indicates Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself, but has come in the mood of Radharani. It's described that Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahi Anya, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a combined form of Radha and Krishna. And Radharani there is wanting to test the love of Krishna through Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And to satisfy that love, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is doing Krishna bhajan, not Radha bhajan, to satisfy the mood of Srimati Radharani. And therefore, Lochan Das Thakur in his Chaitanya Mangal, he's described, Oneka rahasya katha kahi betate vairagya adbhuta prabhur utejena mati. He says, I want to tell you, this is the beginning of Chaitanya Mangal, Oneka rahasya katha, I want to tell you some very secret katha, such as a vairagya adbhuta, the astonishing, amazing renunciation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The poet Yadunath Das has sung a wonderful song, which appears in some of the older Gaudiya songbooks. He's a Vaishnava who lived a little after the time of Mahaprabhu, and his songs appeared in books like Sankirtanamrita and also in the songbooks of Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur and others. And he sung there a wonderful song speaking about the mood of Srimati Radharani. Ganji Ganju Kagu Jana Tahina Darai Chari Chadu Kanija Pati Apada Edi. Radharani said, let my superiors chastise me. Let my husband divorce me. Very good. Then I'll avoid all kinds of trouble. Bali Baluka Pada Loka Tahe Nahida Nabaluka Nadakuka Najabe Tadagar. Let all the neighbors and everybody speak ill of me. I'm not afraid of it. Maybe they won't want to speak to me anymore. Maybe they won't want to invite me. Fine. I won't go to their homes. Dharama Karama Joka Tahina Darai Manira Barami Pache Bandure Harai. Maybe my religious duties won't be done. What do I care? The only concern I have, Manira Bharama. Bharami means to wander about, that the waywardness of my mind, Manira Bharami Pache Bandure Hai, that I may lose my lover to the waywardness of my mind. And then Radharani said, I'll become a sannyasini. Kalamani kera mala gante nibagale kanu guna yasha ami paribakundale. I'll make a necklace and put it around my neck of black stones, the color of Krishna. And I'll wear earrings. Kanu guna yasha ami paribakundali. My kundala, my earrings, are the wonderful qualities and fame of Krishna. I'll wear it boldly. Let everyone see it. Kanu anuraga ranga basana pariya deshi deshi baramila yogina haiya. I'll put on saffron cloth, the color of my love for Krishna. And I'll become a sannyasini and I'll wander about from place to place. What is that saffron color? It's said that this is the saffron color of sannyas is there because of Srimati Radharani. That Radharani in separation from Krishna, sometimes she wears white, like a widow wears. And suffering and crying in separation from Krishna, her tears begin flowing down her cheeks and onto her breasts, which are covered with kumkum. And when the tears of Radharani go on that kumkum, it colors her cloth. And this is a purple, a saffron-colored cloth. The sannyas means Radha Bhav. And therefore, the poet Vasu Ghosh has sung, Jadugora na hoito tabi ki hoito Kimoni dari tamde Radhara mahima prema rasa singha jagate jana toke. If Gauranga Mahaprabhu had not come, Jadugora na hoito tabi ki hoito Kimoni dari tamde, how would we know Radhara mahima, about the glory of Srimati Radharani's love? How would we have this festival today of Radhastami? How would we know anything about it? It's only by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So these things are very, very high things. But as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, we should know something about this. If you don't know about this, if all you're striving for is anartha nibritti, to become free from material desires, he said, you may become an impersonalist. Therefore, our goal is artha prabritti, and we should hear sometimes, and especially on this day, about the appearance of Srimati Radharani and the glories of Srimati Radharani, the glories of Srimati Radharani's love. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, because the purpose of our observance of Radhastami is that we want Srimati Radharani to appear in our hearts. We want to make her presence known. Let her appearance, he said, be the object of our worship. And then we can please Krishna. For without worshipping Srimati Radharani, it's not possible to please Krishna. And therefore it's described, Vina Radha Prasadena. Krishna says, without the mercy of Radha, Mat Prasadana Vidyate, you can't get Krishna Prapta Najayate. Without the mercy of Radha, you can't get the mercy of Krishna. Tata Radhika Krishna Smarani Yosu Samrito. And therefore we should always remember Radha and Krishna together. So we'll stop there. Now I'd like to ask the devotees who are here if they have any reflections on what you walked away with. Nice to see Madhupati Prabhu here, Vasudam Prabhu, Hare Krishna, and Lynn. I don't know what Lynn thinks of all this. Hare Krishna, Leela Avatar Mataji, Om Avani, Subal Sham, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, nice to see you, Naveen, Mamu Thakur, thank you very much for taking part. And Mahendra Prabhu, nice to see you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Madhupati Prabhu. Madhupati Prabhu says, thank you for this amazing class. It was like a river of honey, the golden color of Radharani. So I just want to ask the devotees if they have any reflections, any comments on such a tonight. To come up here, we don't have a mic, so you have to speak really loud near the computer.
The last statement that you just made, Prabhu, that a few times, that in this particular day, in this special day, we would like to invoke the mercy of Srimati Radharani appearing in our heart. So, can someone, if someone thinks you mean to be literally like Radharani there, or in which way will she manifest herself? Because it's too much it's not too much asking, but it's for someone like us striving for devotional service. How can we? That's like really, really
we
elevated. So how would you explain that?
We told a very wonderful story a few days ago about, from the same book actually, about how Srimati Radharani, once in separation from Krishna, wanted to become a cowherd boy to go with Krishna. And seeing that Radharani was leaving, it's described as the Kanishta Kinkari, the smallest gopi, the youngest gopi that began to cry and cry. Oh, Radharani, please, I can't live without you. Radharani said, no, of course, you're coming with me. So this is the appearance of Srimati Radharani. When we become the Kanishta Kinkari, we become the smallest, tiny, most insignificant person, which means that we serve the servant of the servant of the servant of Srimati Radharani. Our goal is not to become a maidservant of Srimati Radharani, or a friend of Srimati Radharani, I'm going to say. Rather, our goal is to become the Palyadasi, or the servant of those servants of Srimati Radharani. And when we have that attitude, and we serve through book distribution, through preaching, this is the behavior of Srimati Radharani. This is practical. When we do that, then we'll please those servants of Srimati Radharani, who have come as our acharyas in our line. I hope that helps something. Anything else from anybody? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and stop there, and we'll be back again on Friday with some more Bhagavatam Katha. Srimati Radharani ki, Shri Radhastami Mahamahotsava ki, Shri Radha Gopinath Ju ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bo, Vansha